It's Saturday. According to my watch UK time, it is 10:50, and we all know what that brings. We've got the World of Realistic series waiting for you here. One of the most intense leagues I've seen on this platform, the PS4 network, of course. Today we're racing around the circuit of the Americas, located in Austin, Texas. Personally, it's one of my favourite tracks on the current calendar. It never disappoints in any league racing, in any real racing, and it certainly won't disappoint with the drivers that we've got in this group here today. It's quite surprising to see rain on the track, though. It's not known to be in one of the locations which has so much rain. So this could bring some controversy into the tyre strategies, possibly if we end up with a dry race. Every single driver will be allowed to choose their own tyre compound for the race, as we now see every single driver is leaving on the intermediate tyre compound. We've seen some changes with the drivers in the league today, and I'll take the opportunity now to take you on a track guide with King Enzo. Turn 1 uphill with a difference in level from 40.5 meters or 133 feet. Entering the chicanes, turns 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 are known to be made in the same manner, to be identical to the famous chicane known as Maggots and Beckett's around the Silverstone circuit. Entering sector 2 now is are turns 7, 8 and 9, another chicane followed by turn 10 in the short run, but a very important one, into turn 11. Its exit will determine the speed that the drivers will enter the very long rear straight on, which so crucially labels DRS, and slipstream will definitely be an important factor around here. As we now see King Enzo in the Red Bull, he's coming towards turn 12, which is the final corner of sector 2. Sector 3 now begins with turns 13 and 14, a double right-hander followed by turns 15, which is so deep and has so many overtaking opportunities thanks to this very wide part of the circuit. It's followed by one of my favourite parts of the circuit, an almost perfectly circular turns 16, 17 and 18, which you can practically take flat out if you're racing around a dry circuit. This is followed by turn 19, the penultimate corner on this track, which then once again acts as a very important factor to begin the run into turn 1. As I've said before, the difference is 133 feet. The track on its start-finish straight has the width of 15.8 meters, almost enough for 3 car widths, which could so crucially prove to be one of the best overtaking opportunities around this track today. Of course, we've got plenty of other opportunities, such as turn 11, but if the drivers, unless the drivers are really in the need of overtaking, they shouldn't really be overtaking around that corner, if you ask me, because doing so will destroy their run fully onto the back straight. The number of laps in the real race is 56, therefore we will be doing 26 laps of this track, as we're doing a 50% race as always. The time to beat, and we have seen these times beaten before by other drivers in previous races, is a 1:36.1 set by Charles Leclerc in 2019. Of course, that was in soft tyre conditions in the warm summer's day. So seeing our drivers having to pull out on the wet tyre compounds will definitely not be something that brings our hopes up for the chance to have a lap of the lap for Charles Leclerc beaten. The first laps are set, ACW has set a 148, but it is quickly beaten by King Enzo, which sets a 147.3. A huge distance away from the lap record of this track, but it's definitely not something that we're going to be hoping here today, as I've said before, considering the fact that we've got wet tyre conditions. The track was built in 2010, as we all know. The construction had started. By 2012 it had finished in the month of June. Pretty soon after, the MotoGP rolled into town, followed by Formula 1, and since then we've seen many different racing classes around this track. We've seen, of course, the beautiful cars of our F1 engines. We've seen the MotoGP. We've seen the endurance series around this track as well, actually, followed by Indy cars. I think the one motorsport that we're missing here is Formula E. Of course, the long straights would definitely not be something that the engines of the Formula E cars would be able to stand up to, and the 133 feet difference in level between turns 1 and 20 would definitely be something tough for the Formula E cars to stand up to, which brings into consideration the fact that we could have a Formula E race here backwards, actually, something that we haven't seen in any other class. Even the karting series hasn't been doing that yet. The fastest lap is already beaten by Ryan here, who's now racing the Toro Rosso after making a move from the Williams, which has actually withdrawn from the league. At 147.2, he's just 1/10 faster than King Enzo in the Red Bull, but we all know how racing works. 1/10 of a second is all you need. We now see the Haas behind the Toro Rosso getting a cheeky slipstream here, as he goes very wide there. Unfortunate run for this driver here. We now see the other Toro Rosso hitting the fastest lap at 146.9. Reason to see the track slowly drying up here. Not too much, but with the rain slowly starting to fade away, the drivers might be considering to go on the soft tyre compound by the end of this 10-minute draft. Will they, however? The racing line, as we see, is starting to dry up thanks to all the cars driving over it with the heat coming out of the radiating out of the car. The track is drying up quite substantially, but will it be enough to hold to supply soft tyre compounds? Of course, if someone does set a lap on that compound, they will be likely to finish in another position, which might not be the best realistically position, considering the fact that everybody else will have the opportunity to start on soft tyre on any compound they like, but not the person that is in the top 10 on the soft compound. I'd like to bring you up to date with some of the news that we've heard from this league. We have opened officially the Formula 2 season, which will commence very soon. I've been asked to encourage anyone watching here to join the league. It will be a perfect feeder series, and you'll have the chance to potentially fight against the best drivers that we see in the WRS streams every week. Of course, the last stream we had was last Saturday. Usually we would have had streams and races on Wednesdays as well. However, because of the lockdown starting to fade away in some countries, and the governments are deciding to bring the quarantine to an end, the league owners have decided to to bring a halt on weekday racing, as more and more drivers will be leaving home and going to school or work. Also, ECW, the former pole position sitter, now in 10th, something we'll definitely be trying to improve. Savvy, however, has set a 146 in his beautiful Ferrari here. Even in the rain, it's illuminating its colours, something quite beautiful to see around this track. Ken Kenzo has beaten that already. We've started to see a bit of a cold war here between the two drivers. We remember the tragic event that happened last race, where Kimi had been fighting Killers in the Ferrari. Killers, after pushing so much and trying the undercut, ended up leaving the pits after Kimi, who pitted so many laps later. His pit stop ended up costing Killers so much time and so much pressure that when he tried to push on, he ended up, well, as we all know, around Spain there are many low grip areas, and Killers found out about that in a very unfortunate manner. He ended up crashing out after running in P2. You now see the Racing Point getting a bit of a cheeky slipstream pull there. We've seen many changes in drivers around the grid today. Kingsley is running in P5 after finally sitting in earlier lap, which is something that he's been struggling to do in the previous races. He's always been leaving the pits quite late, which was never the greatest idea if you ask me. Any mistake could have cost him a potential disqualification from the session, which happened not once but many times. In essence, costing him a potential solid championship standing. We now see Aaron in the Racing Point hitting a 146.2, dominating the rest of the grid very substantially. We've seen this driver complete some absolutely amazing drives here, which is something he would definitely definitely wanting to carry this on into the race today. The momentum he has is very strong. He'll be very unlucky if he doesn't manage to perform as well as he has been done in the previous races. If the race does go into wet conditions, he will be under threat from not other drivers but the conditions themselves. This could be a test of which drivers are most capable of any conditions. You see the last 4 minutes and 30 seconds are home to many drivers leaving the pits now, trying to set the possible fastest laps, still trying to get the upper positions. They know that if the conditions in the race are going to be dry, they will be allowed to change onto any type compound they wish. A common tyre strategy for this race around this quite demanding circuit in terms of fuel consumption and tyre wear is often a soft to intermediate, it's a soft to hard compound, sorry, or a medium to soft again. A two-stop strategy might not be the best idea for these drivers, but we've seen plenty of safety cars in previous races. If the legacy of the safety car lives on, we could see a lot of variation in tyre strategies. Savvy, after being in the upper position, is now running in P5. He has split up with his teammate Kingsley. They were both in the Racing Points before, but as we see now, they run in a Ferrari and a Red Bull. Austin, meanwhile, remains in the Renault that brought him a win recently. as we've seen many different winners around this in this league. These have been Kimi, who has won at Spain. He is not racing with us today. I don't think so, at least. Yes, Kimi is not racing with us today. He was in the Red Bull, I'd like to remind you. Ice-T had won at Monaco in Canada, and Manel at France and Brazil. So far we've only had 3 race winners. Will that change today? Will we have someone extra? Manel is also not in the league anymore. His position in the Mercedes is taken up by a hybrid here. The silver colour of the Mercedes eliminates in the rain quite beautifully, if you ask me as well. 2 minutes to go of the qualifying session, and we still have several drivers set their top laps. I'd like to remind you that Mikey here and the Williams is a steward racing. He is not here for points, that is why he's not doing a proper lap. Of course, the Mercedes position has been taken over by a reserve driver, as I've said before, because of Manel, who was suffering an injury. I'm sure he's going to be tuning in. We all wish him the best of luck in the recovery. And it's 1 minute 22 seconds to go. The rain is intensifying, which is not a good news for the drivers, as we now see the Mercedes spinning, something that will definitely cost him possibly up to 2 times. He has given up here. After that was actually the lap he has been setting. That was the one that took him from P17 sorry, to P8, but now has dropped into P9. Aaron is very confident of his performance here, as he's already retired from the session. Well, we've still got other drivers here who know they can push the cars a bit more to the limits. We'll see if they can do this though. I'd like to remind you of the previous races standings. It was won by Kimi, who, as I've said before, was so lucky due to Killis, his main rival that race, crashing out. He told us in the post-race interviews later that he felt extremely blessed there and lucky, because he would have definitely been under a lot of pressure from that driver. He was followed closely by Benjamin, Ice-T, Jack, Cornet, Bo, Monster, King Enzo, Savvy and Jacob. That was the top 10 for the previous race. Well, we see some other drivers in the top 10 today. The qualifying session has now ended, but the drivers who are still setting laps can finish them. One of these drivers is Savvy here in the Ferrari. He's going to be pushing this car to limits around this circuit. He has to lift off through these parts here, and he now enters the double left-hander from P5. Where will he go into? He hasn't set a faster sector as of yet, but that doesn't mean his sector 3 will be bad. He goes into pole position with a 145.9. Amazing lap from the Ferrari, puts him in front of the so confident racing points of Aaron there. I was definitely not expecting that. We haven't seen him set a faster sector here, but he's proved that he's got the speed. 145.9. He is over 3/10 faster than the car behind him. This sets him up perfectly into the race. This will be something amazing. An amazing race I'm predicting here. We've seen tons of safety cars and tons of action, but no track can live up to what we see here. Aaron has actually been overtaken by both Compassion and King Enzo. So here he goes from being in a position in P1 all the way down to P4. So by the looks of it, it's going to be raining in the race as well. Here is your top driver, Savi, in the Ferrari, sets at 145.9, only a tenth faster, not even a full tenth faster than Compassion behind him, followed by King Enzo, Aaron, Kimi, and the rest of the grid. We've seen many changes in the drivers' seats here. Will this provide some controversy in the racing today? People will be driving around against their former teammates. With new teammates, they will be willing to prove that they're faster, to secure themselves a contract for the upcoming races. Something that so crucially would have supplied them with the ease and less pressure into the following races. Drop your predictions for the top 3 in the comment section below. We could host a little competition here, I guess, with the prizes to be confirmed with the league owners. What I'd be down to do, however, would be a fancy Wrs league with so many differences with so many different winners and so much action. We could potentially see something that being quite a successful story, I think. Here they are, Circuit of Americas, located in Austin, Texas, one of the, I'd say, least likely places to rain in the world on such a regular occasion. Here we are, full wet tyre compound is the one fitted by the current race leader and everyone else behind him. Every car is swimming through the chicane, with this rain intensifying so incredibly. I must say I am speechless, to be honest, if you ask me. These drivers have to perform 28 laps of this track in such terrible conditions. We've already seen Kimi hitting the wall. Well, that wasn't Kimi, that was King Enzo, sorry. Luckily enough, Diamond just turned off in qualifying, in the formation lap, sorry. A lot of rain we see here. We could see a lot of carnage on lap 1, unless the drivers learn that they can't push too quickly and too eagerly. As I've said before, the Circuit of the Americas is one of the tracks which is in the further section of the season, in the second half. A lap is 5.5 kilometers long. The time to beat was at 136.1. However, I doubt it will be beaten here. If it wasn't beaten in the qualifying session, it's definitely going to be beaten here. They all line up now. Pressure in the cabins in every single one of their rooms. This is Saturday, the 9th of May. I'm trying to get a nice shot here from the front, and there it is. Saturday 9th May, we see the drivers now pulling away 5 lights, and away we go. The Ferrari gets off to a slightly better start than the Alfa Romeo, who pushes so closely into turn 1. The Ferrari tries to cover up the inside, but he is too close to the Alfa Romeo. He knows that it would be something too dangerous to complete, but the Alfa Romeo manages to stick onto the inside. We haven't seen any drivers out too wide. The Ferrari managed to take back the position actually. The Racing Point of Aaron has regained the position there, which he has lost in the qualifying session. Then we now see the other Ferrari, however, fighting the Toro Rosso, pushing it from side to side, as we see the Red Bull out in a spin there. Many drivers are now pushing side by side through Sector 2. Something very dangerous here, as we see the Haas having to lift off there and losing the position to other drivers because of carnages happening in front of him. We now see the race leaders changing here, as the Alfa Romeo regains the lead of the race, followed by the Ferrari, which is so closely fighting for this position. He is eager to win this race. A perfect tire strategy and fuel consumption will be all he needs. Here he is slightly missing off the curb there, which so crucially leaves him in P2, but he is so closely also followed by the Racing Point of Aaron right behind him. He now goes up the inside. Does he manage to keep it? Yes, he does. He pushes the Ferrari out wide. They now go side by side into the triple right-hander. With the rain, this driver is unable to retain grip, and he has to lift off there. And this is lap 1 slowly coming to a close, but a lot of drama is something that we've already seen. The Haas goes wide there. Compassion gets a 1:56, which is the fastest lap of the race so far. Of course, that will be beaten next lap. The Renault now goes up the outside of the Toro Rosso. Does he make a stick? I see, yes he does. This brings him into the pointed position. A single point is not a lot, but it is a substantial amount considering that your rivals are not racing in the race today. That was Kingsley at the beginning of the race spinning. That was the driver that we saw there. Very unlucky. We now see Compassion pulling away by over 1.2 seconds from Savvy, who is followed very closely by the Toro Rosso there, by the Racing Point there, sorry. But we now see the other Ferrari of Kimi is racing, sorry, I didn't see him earlier. He is now going up the inside of both the Red Bull and the Toro Rosso. Does he make a stick? This could be a double overtake. Kenny, he makes contact with the Red Bull there, but he doesn't make a stick around the Toro Rosso. It looks like he might have some damage considering the fact that he's lost time to Red Bull there and almost a position to the Haas. Here he is, P6 and P2. Two Ferraris in such high positions could leave them with a lot of points following this race. Now round off Sector 3 and are about to begin the third lap of 28. Still far away from any potential pit stops, and with the grid slightly pulling away from each other, seems as if we're going to see a bit less overtakes. However, we are seeing the Renault coming very close to the Haas there. The Haas knowing has to retain its reputation around this track. After all, the Haas is an American company, first declared in NASCAR, and after bringing in such success and so much money, moves into F1. We see the Renault making a beautiful move around the Haas. Sorry, I was about to mention Icy there, but that was such a beautiful move by the Renault. That must be clipped and that must be put into some sort of velocity competition or something. That is absolutely amazing. Great overtake by Monster there. Beautiful, beautiful move. Meanwhile, his teammate Icy is unfortunately out of the race. We might see him somewhere while Kingsley makes his way through the track. The virtual safety car will help him regain his position there. Very unlucky for one of the Renaults, but very lucky for the other. The driver which is making up the most here is probably Savvy, the driver who had lost up so much to the Alfa Romeo in front of him. Now thanks to the virtual safety car he managed to pull in a bit closer, but this virtual safety car is out now and he is trailing once again by 2.1 seconds. Haas now follows fairly closely to the Renault in front of him. But oh my god, I still can't believe that absolutely amazing move that the driver in the seat of the Renault had completed. That is, if that doesn't secure you a season contract, I don't know what will. That was amazing. If the Renault principal is watching, if any principal is watching, you now know that this driver here, Monster, is the one that you want on your team. King Enzo meanwhile follows the Toro Rosso, trailing very slightly there. As I've said before, magazine Beckett's are something that has been replicated in the Circuit of Americas, the first chicanes here. It was then the second part of the circuit, the stadium section, has been mimicked to the Hockenheim circuit and Istanbul's Park turn 8. The Istanbul Park hasn't been on the season calendar since 2008. We're all hoping it'll return one day. We now see a fight for the bottom podium position between the Toro Rosso and the Racing Point in front of him. He makes it very close and he's about to make a dive up on the inside. Kenny, he gets absolutely squeezed though. Of course they went side by side, but Aaron did not leave the Toro Rosso there any space. The Toro Rosso, however, is about to set the fastest lap of the race, it looks like. He set the fastest sector 1 and he now follows with the same achievement for sector 2. Sector 3 was slightly destroyed by the move Aaron made there, but it's definitely not something that's going to cost him too much time, as he makes up a lot of it into turn 20 there, the final turn of the track. Does he get the fastest lap? Looks like he hasn't, unfortunately, but he makes a beautiful move up on Aaron, who might try to make the switchback there. Does he? The Toro Rosso remains in front going into the chicanes of turns 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6, and he now gains the podium position. But as we've seen there behind, there was also a fight for P5 between Kimi and the Ferrari and the Red Bull of King Enzo. Red Bull is of course the former team that Kimi was racing for. He now goes through right before the long back straights, the place I told everyone before that it is not the best place to overtake, as we've seen here now. Kimi has absolutely destroyed his run into the long straight because of that move. King Enzo, this allowed King Enzo to make the switchback, but now the Ferrari is making up time again. Does he make the move around the outside? It looks like King Enzo will be going slightly wide. No, he doesn't. Kimi remains on track there. He goes up the inside. Beautiful move here. Easily performed, but it is quickly countered by the switchback of the Red Bull, who is also under pressure from Monster in the Renault right behind them. As the Ferrari goes for a slight spin, so does the Red Bull, which brings the Renault into a lot of controversy in this fight, which gives him the move. The Ferrari did have the inside, but he gave it up pretty quickly. So this allows the Renault to be running in P4. In P6, sorry. going wide every single corner, he will have to remain very cautious. He doesn't. I'm sure this driver doesn't want to receive any penalties for track limitations. But we see the Ferrari trying to regain his former position here, unsuccessfully though. Savi's getting now caught up by. Compassion is getting caught up by Savi here, after making up over 0.4 of a second, very substantial amount in racing force, as we see a huge amount of oversteer due to low grip around this track. Now the rain is starting to ease off, so the potential tyre strategy on lap 6 and onwards would be logically to go onto the intermediate tyre compound. Will this happen though? That will be something dependent on every single driver and the personal feel of the track. Monster's now catching up to the driver which he was so close to overtaking just a lap ago at almost the same place. And 0.6 of a second separates him from King Enzo, which is at front. But he is also followed very closely by Kimi behind him. 0.7 of a second separates him from the Ferrari. Does he complete this? This fight could last many laps, considering the low group the drivers have to fight against. A beautiful track we see here. 20 corners of absolute masterclass. As we see the first pit stops here from everyone in the top 5, lap 7, and everyone is overtaken. Intermediate compound tyres are the one fitted by Compassion. We now see the Ferrari of Savi coming out very close to him. Looks like he's made up a bit of time in the pits there. And now Savi has found himself behind the Toro Rosso, which seems to have gearbox issues. Meanwhile, the former Williams driver sets the fastest lap for this race. Looks like the Toro Rosso might have some issues with his wheel or controller, whatever he's racing on. It seems as if he's stuck in fourth gear, sorry. But it looks like it's backing and running. The sound of those gears aren't really too musical to our ears, I don't think. I believe everyone would agree with me there. The pit stops have brought some controversy here, but we actually saw one of the drivers in the hall there, I think. We might see him here now. It looks like as if it was just a bit of spin there. We now see that almost everyone has pitted on lap 7. Something I couldn't really have predicted before. Here is the Alfa Romeo of Jack, the reserve driver, fighting Kimi here. He has emerged in P13 after running in the upper positions. But we've seen a lot of a big jam here between the positions between P8 and P10 by the looks of it. The Toro Rosso comes very close to the McLaren, but doesn't manage to hold on to potential move. Here are 4 drivers now in this train, putting each other slipstream, pushing the cars to the limits around every single part of the circuit, trying to make a possible move. Here we see the Toro Rosso making a slight cut of the corner, which definitely resulted in a warning there. here they now go. The Toro Rosso is probably the biggest contender for a possible move on any car around the track as of now. There is a double yellow flag in sector 1 and 2, but we are now entering sector 3, I'd like to remind you. And these drivers are now closer than ever, thanks to the long straight that I've managed to make up a lot of time. With the rain easing off, slipstream has become more and more effective here. As we now see the Toro Rosso going up the inside of the McLaren, and the McLaren tries to make a switchback, but he clips his front wing on the rear tyre. Sebastian gets the fastest lap of the race. Meanwhile, the Toro Rosso is now pulling away immediately from the driver in front of him. Behind him, sorry. Kimi, after running P12, is now on P18. Everybody has stopped. Kingsley is on his third stop, however. As you now see the possible dive up the inside by the Mercedes. Does he make a mistake? Very close between the drivers, save great concentration and focus here, which allows them to remain untouching each other. A very safe move there, I was about to say, until the Mercedes went into a slight spin. Hybrid, the former Red Bull driver, has made a possible move which you could call better into the stronger car of the Mercedes, with the Mercedes and Ferrari are way off from the Red Bull and the rest of the pack. But will that pay off, or was the position in his former team possibly better? We now see the Racing Point possibly making a move on the McLaren here. Looks like he's too far, but a dive bomb could potentially work out here. Well, it would have if it was in dry conditions, but unfortunately that is not what we've got here today. We've all seen the recent trailer that Formula 1 and Codemasters announced for the new game. The F1 2020 will be probably, as it has been before, announced to be on sales around June. So possibly next month we could see a new game with new cars out, and soon in our PS4s. One of the biggest controversies, however, is the fact whether it will support PS4s. With the new upcoming PS5, we could potentially be losing out on one of the best games on the system so far. Going back to the racing that we're here today, still in F1 2019. You see the Racing Point still trying to trail onto Caramel and the McLaren in front of him. A slight mistake is all you need to cost you 2 or even 3/10 of a second here around such a track in such conditions. As we now see the Mercedes trying to make a move here with several burst accelerations there, something that he failed, unfortunately, because of ACW locking him by turning in a bit earlier than possibly desirable. But they still remain close to each other, they still remain fighting. Everyone here is a warrior. They'll be fighting for anything. They don't give up until your tyres blow off, like Mark Webber's had in Turkey back in 2010, I think. These drivers will be fighting until the very end. All you need is a straight steering wheel, full sets of tyres, an engine, and one of these drivers from this league to make a potential great career in racing. The rain is still easing off, lap 11 or 28 here. As we see the Racing Bull trying to make a move on the McLaren, they are very close to each other now. McLaren was under a lot of pressure. The Racing Point, however, by cutting the corner, is coming closer and closer as one of the stewards giving it a penalty as he makes a big dive bomb into this segment of the chicanes, and that looks like it's going to stay there. The McLaren hits the rear of the Racing Point several times, which allows the Mercedes to come very close. The Racing Point cuts the corner there. They now come out of turns 10 and down to turn 12 with such little space between them. We could see a potential dive bomb into turn 12 here. This is the second time we've seen a move in through the chicanes here. It's something I definitely haven't expected. Does the McLaren go for a dive? No, he doesn't, but he does clip the rear of ACW there, which does lose him a lot of speed and puts him into a slight spin there. Going into one of the widest corners of the track. Now all the drivers, including Kimi now, who has actually caught up in his Ferrari and overtaken the Mercedes there. He's already on the tail of the McLaren. He's definitely fast. He's got the faster car. I'm sure he's got the faster setup, this driver. But can he bring that speed in and overtake the McLaren? He's now very close. He's coming and eyeing up on every single millimeter of this track. 1 pixel is all we need for an overtake. If you know what I mean, you'll be laughing right now. Kerimo defends into turn 1, thanks to which he remains in the last pointed position. 1 point is always a lot of us. We've almost seen another dive in through the chicanes here. The Mercedes of hybrid is slowly starting to get very irritated, as we see. He's pushing his car more than he possibly should. We see the Racing Point pulling far away, which just goes to show that this McLaren is the one holding everyone up here. The Ferrari seems like it's about to make a move here. They go side by side, but all he needs is this inside. If he can keep it, he's going to remain on top. The McLaren has a lot more straight line speed around this area of the circuit. Hybrid's trying to go in and out of every single corner, trying to find a possible position and a possible place to overtake. The McLaren remains fighting for the 10th position, but the Ferrari of Kimi goes up the inside into the following corners, and the McLaren fights back again. I'm in disbelief how much effort this McLaren is putting in. His tyres are definitely starting to degrade faster than he would possibly imagine and love to. But as we all know, sometimes fighting for a position, and especially in a race such as this one, is better than fighting for than trying to keep your tyres cool. With a potential safety car coming out later on in this race, pit stops can arise any moment. We see the Ferrari coming up on the inside with the McLaren going on to a slight spin. He doesn't manage to keep it though. Hybrid now has pulled away a little bit. Looks like he made a bit of a mistake there. Can we see Kimi making a possible dive through the chicanes? He's making a lot of time here, but he's clearly begun to brake here a bit faster, a bit earlier, I mean. This is turn 11 once again. Not what they come up to now. This fight has gone on for many laps, and I'm sure if the McLaren had pitted again or just let these drivers pass, he would most certainly be driving up right by the Racing Point there, and so would the Mercedes. Both of these drivers must be seriously irritated by the performance of the McLaren, who is definitely holding them up now. Because of this, they are losing 3 seconds to the racing point ahead, who's only making up time to the drivers in front of him. If we take a look up to the beginning of the pack, a place that we haven't been at in many laps, we see Monster now remaining in P7. He'll be trying to fight for a potential P6. Does he though? No, he doesn't into turn 1. But the track is long, it's 5.5 kilometers long. A move can occur anywhere and everywhere. As Edwin Senna once said, if you no longer go for a gap that exists, you are no longer a racing driver. These drivers have definitely heard that quote before, and that is why they're definitely going for every potential gap here. Savino trails by 2 seconds to Compassion. Who once again supports a very dominant performance in this race. As we now see Red Bull trying to eye up on the racing point here. Darcy though seems like a bit of a challenge, which is why we're going to go back to where we've been before, the place where we see the Ferrari now coming very close to Carmel there. Still not enough to make a potential move. We've got our second retirement of the session, following the reserve driver's crash here. Which once again doesn't disappoint. We've got safety cars in this league every single race. Even Monaco has seen a virtual safety car, although it was only one during that race. I'd like to remind you the first race we had which was in Interlagos, had contained 5 safety cars, 2 of them being virtuals. Now here is one of the moments of truth. Lap 15 of 28. Do the drivers pit? Yes, they do. P10, 11, 12 and 13 are in the pit, so is P5, 6 and 7. The other drivers have not yet been close enough to the pit lane. They will definitely be hoping they were though. Does the McLaren pit? Yes, he does, as everyone else does. 15 of 20, a fresher tyre compound will definitely help them a little bit. However, if you take a look at the sky, it's starting to clear up a little bit, so that potentially we could see dry conditions by the end of the race. We've seen a lot of improvement with the conditions here, but there is still a lot of rain here. Everyone is pitting. Can you see in the beautiful garage of the Red Bulls? Me myself, I'm a Mercedes fan, but you have to admit the garage of the Red Bulls always looks absolutely amazing with the tail lights and everything. It's simply amazing. And by the looks of it, this is everyone pitting as of now. And there is the safety car. The drivers will be now very close to each other, hoping to make a little bit of a dive here. We now see, if we take a look at the positions here, we see Aaron in P3 after making a pit stop, who loses out to the Torosso, which has actually also made a stop here. Who will remain victorious after this fight? This will be something absolutely amazing, I can guarantee you. We've seen plenty of racing which was at a very high class in this league before, and I'm sure this fight that we're about to see will not disappoint. The safety car is still out on track. We now receive quite a beautiful shot from the rear of the Mercedes, sorry. be very close to each other, and we still haven't received any possible information about the safety car coming in. Although I do expect it to come in within the following 2 laps. The drivers definitely won't be wanting that though. Of course the tyres will be going, will start to lose heat and some of the brakes. But what they do need is these tyres to remain in the peak performance for the most laps possible, and that is something that the safety car will manage to provide them. So we've got 2 retirements of the session so far. Definitely more than I would have called at the beginning of the race. However, considering the wet conditions, it seems pretty realistic to have this many retirements. We remember the amount of retirements we had in Interlagos. That was an amazing race. We've seen so many safety cars, there's so many retirements. I think there was 6 or 7 there. And if we take a look at real life action, we've seen a lot of retirements in such races such as Germany in 2019. I think it was the race which was meant to be so good for the Mercedes drivers, but ended up being one of the biggest strategies that season. Nevertheless, they still won both the Drivers' and Constructors' Championship after dominating very substantially, which just goes to show that anything can happen. Even if you've got one of the worst races and one of the worst performances, you can still make it into something such amazing as a Drivers' Championship win. This is the 3rd lap that these drivers are behind the safety car. As we've seen that was compassion there. We're now on a spin, which, no he isn't. Compassion is on slicks. I'm sorry to know, I've mentioned that before, but I just haven't seen it. And for 1, he's on slicks. For 2, he just lost every single position from P1 all the way down to P9. What has happened to this Alfa Romeo? If we take a look at every single other driver, no one else is on slicks. This driver is making a big risk. You can just see how much his tyres are spinning here. It looks like he might have thrown away a potential race win here by not only spinning but putting on this tyre compound. Because of all this action, we now see the Toro Rosso in P1. So the safety car will be in this lap, and Aaron now has an easier job as he has an easier rival to overtake. All he needs is to overtake this one driver, which managed to be in his position by a lot of luck. All he needs is this one overtake, and he will be the leader of this race once again. He qualified in pole position, well, from a lower position. He began in pole, ended up going into P5, which is the position he started the race on, and he is now running in P2. Savi, meanwhile, in the Ferrari, is in P3. He's also got an easier driver to overtake now. Does Compassion pit though? No, he doesn't. He remains in the slicks. The safety car is in this lap, and we now see the fight for the leader of the race. The Toro Rosso has quite surprisingly pulled away almost immediately, followed by the racing points and the Ferrari, which tries to make a look on the inside, but he doesn't succeed in doing so. He is closely followed by the other drivers which are fighting for positions. The safety cars brought them all very close to each other. Here is the Renault, which had made a beautiful move in through the chicanes earlier. With two drivers fighting in front of him, he's going to be hoping for some trouble between them, which could potentially give him an easy cut into P5. But sometimes life isn't that easy. You need to fight for the position that you gain, or that you want to gain. Compassion is now on P16 just because of his tyre compound. A big gamble from P1 to P17. What has this driver done? We'll definitely be inviting him for the post-race interviews to ask him for the reasoning behind this change. Kengenzo here is fighting the Toro Rosso, which actually gives a look for Monster, who now gains the position of P6. He's now very close to P5. Kengenzo has been one of the bigger rivals for many drivers this season. A very solid driver in the midfield. Savi is now in P2, so unfortunately we had missed that overtake, but we will definitely see something a lot better as he's running in P2 and very closely to P1. He's probably the biggest threat to the driver in front of him now, and the only biggest threat to him is himself. The rain is almost fully eased off, and by the looks of it soon it will be away, which means that possibly by the end of these 28 laps we will have a slick tyre compound race and DRS potentially. As we now see the Ferrari trying to go out on the outside of the Toro Rosso. Does he make it stick? A very tough move he was attempting there, especially on such a corner. What will the driver do? He will definitely not be cracking under pressure as fast as the Toro Rosso will. The Toro Rosso is the one that has to retain the position. He has the most to lose, as Jensen Button has told us in his books before. The driver in front is the one that has the most risks. We now see the Toro Rosso cracking here under the force of and sheer speed of the Ferrari in front of him, behind him. Savi gets the fastest lap once again at 1:48.4. He's only coming closer and closer to the driver in front of him. It's clearly just a matter of time before he makes an overtake. "16 seconds away from everyone else, and he goes into the wall, lost the front wing. That is Compassion's race over. He's now trying to get his tyre off. Virtual safety car. He has retired from the race. He has clearly given up. We see a bit of a spasm of the tyres here. What a race for the Alfa Romeo. Good news for Aaron here, who will now be able to catch up to the drivers in front of him. Depending on how long the virtual safety car lasts, so the drivers can't see Compassion anymore. This car has been taken off track. The way he DNF'd on purpose just goes against his chances of extending a possible lead. . and potentially securing himself a race contract. The virtual safety car is now out, and we have 8 laps remaining of this quota circuit. Because of this virtual safety car, Savio has actually lost 1.9 seconds to the Toro Rosso. Something that could cost him in the long term. But we see another very close fight between many drivers here. Between a Red Bull, a Haas and a Racing Point. This is a fight for P3, I'd like to remind you. The bonus of the podium is a highly desirable place for many drivers. They say that P2 is the first of losers, but if you think about it, a common P4 is the first real loser. It's the first position that doesn't get awarded with so much points and well, applause for a performance and gaining all the positions and coming into the podium spot. Coming close to Aaron now is the Haas. Aaron has actually now began to cut corners in several places that he knows he can do so, because the game will not acknowledge that. However, several other drivers could potentially raise an awareness and raise concerns to the stewards after the race regarding this. As here goes the steward. But as a reminder, he isn't racing for points, he's just here for fun. Savio's already made up 0.3 of a second. Very easily double, I guess you could say here. We now see a move between Kingsky here, who has actually made a move by the looks of it on the Haas, which is now behind him. Considering that it was probably in turn 1, it was probably a quite beautiful move there, which is something we might see in the race highlights after a while. The race league board has told us that after we hit 1,000 views on YouTube, they will be putting out a race highlights and a possible season highlights video. So stay tuned for that, and make sure to tell your friends to watch our races. We've seen a very big training between drivers here. As you can see, it spans all the way from P10 to P3. And if you take a look at the driver who's leading this, it is no other than Aaron. With no more rain, these drivers might be potentially going on to slicks within the next few laps, unless the track is fully dry on the racing line. However, the drivers who are off the racing line will not have such an easy job, as Magic Alonso goes for a slight spin there, which allows the Renault there to make a possible move, but he will have the outside, which will be a very dangerous position to be trying to overtake. He has to go very deep, and the Haas makes a big corner cut there. Toro Rosso now fighting Monster for P6. If you ask me who I'd like to see for on the podium position, I'd definitely say it would be Savi, Aaron and Monster. I feel like out of today's race, these are the drivers of the day. Monster has had a very beautiful move at the beginning of the race. And I think that clearly just goes to show that he is passionate for racing and is not willing to stay back behind another driver while he knows that he could make a potential overtake. Aaron is still leading the straight here, which is starting to split up a little bit. We now have eyes on our Toro Rosso here. This is Ryan here. Sorry. He's coming very close to the Renault here, but the Renault, however, is even closer to Magic Alonso and the Haas. Does that mean he will be making a potential overtake? Within one corner he lost so much time and speed, momentum, everything. I'd like to remind you of one of our drivers, Austin, who has been the first retirement of this session. You can see them at the bottom of the screen's P19. He has been in a fight with Joe Fletcher, one of our former drivers in this league. He raced for the championship win in the VRL Formula 1 2019 league. Unfortunately, because of, well, issues and a penalty, a 10 second time penalty which he received at the end, he lost the position. All he needed was a P5 if Jai had finished P1. And Jai did finish P1 with a very dominant performance. But IST, after receiving a penalty, ended up losing the championship there, as we see the Red Bull coming very close to the racing point, which almost pushes him off the circuit here. Going back to what I was saying about IST, it could potentially be that loss of luck here there that lost him all the confidence going into this race. But he is a highly talented driver, and I think he knows that. So he should remain here with his head up, proud to be part of this league. We now see drivers coming into the pits, which looks like they might be going on to slicks. This is the time when drivers could actually make a logical move onto the slick tyre compounds. Do they? Yes, they do. Soft tyre compounds are prepared for the racing point here of Aaron. With 4 laps left of this race, the track is completely dried up as we have predicted earlier, and now it looks like the inters are going to be the tyres which are the ones which are going to slide more and risk a big failure and crash in the wall. There's several drivers still on track running at the intermediate tyre compound. That's to say the top 3, which are now going to be slower than everyone else. Top 4, sorry. They're now going to be easily overtaken by Aaron, which looks like he's going to be winning the race. This is something I would not have predicted. Of course, he has been, as I've said before, one of my favourite drivers this race. He has had an absolutely amazing performance, but I would not have predicted him to manage to win the race under such conditions. A 2-stop tyre change is what many drivers were using here in this race, and it looks like King Enzo now pits, one of the biggest contenders for the potential for win here. And the Ferrari now fights against Aaron here. So this is Savi now in P3. the driver which we have completely forgotten about. Just look at the sheer speed. Kingston now sets the fastest lap of 1:43. Monsters in P2. Only 2 drivers remain on the intermediate tyre compounds. Savvy, if I remember correct, has received a 5-second time penalty. DRS has been enabled. So all odds line up to the racing point here now. Who has the chance of making a big move here? Here goes the DRS zone. Has been crossed, and we saw the thumb of the driver hitting a button. He enables DRS. The DRS is now de-enabled, but the Ferrari fights back. Clearly, there's nothing more than talent that goes into racing around tracks like these. With 2 laps left of this race, they are definitely going to be trying to win from where they are right now. As Monster's now overtaken by Savvy, he's quickly followed by Aaron, and the only driver left who must pit in order to retain his position is the Toro Rosso here. Seems as if he's holding on the current tyres. He's got 2 laps left, and with the 9-second gap, he knows that a potential pit stop would lose him too much time, but he's losing over a second on every single, well, not even lap. He's losing a second between every single corner. Just look at that. He's had a 12-second advantage a moment ago. He's now only 5 seconds in front of Savvy here. So as we've seen, the fastest lap so far has been a 1:38, only 2 seconds faster than the fastest lap ever set around this track, which is set in qualifying in 2019 by Charles Lug, as we've seen, we've heard before. He's now only leading by 2 seconds. That is why pit stop timing is so crucially important. If this driver had pitted before, he could have potentially been a contender for the race win. But here is Savvy, the driver which has been sat in pole position. On fresh tyres, he now runs back in P1, closely followed by Aaron here. But Savvy is just dominant at 1:35.7. He is soon going to be the fastest lap ever set around this track. This is the last lap that we're racing around here, and honestly, I couldn't see this race going any other direction with the sheer dominance of Savvy than him going for the win. Toro Rosso is in 3rd. Kimi meanwhile goes into P7 after overtaking the former driver which was in P7, which was Darfifa, which has now also been overtaken by King Enzo. The intermediate tyre compound clearly not going for the better of these drivers. Monster, the driver I was telling you about earlier, the one which had such an amazing race, is running P13, and he's overtaken again. P14 is the current position he's on. This is just sad for many of these drivers which have remained on the intermediate tyre compound. If they hadn't and had pit a bit earlier, they could have potentially been contenders for the race win. Here we are though, final corners, turn 20, and from P1 back to P1 is Savvy and the Ferrari. Absolutely amazing performance from this driver. Clearly practiced this track, this race. He knew when to pit, and that is what got him the race win today. Hybrid actually gets P3 in the Mercedes due to penalties awarded to other drivers. we see debris flying, but that doesn't matter anymore. The race is now over. So we've now seen our fourth race winner. So the legacy of winners, which was running as Kimi, Icy and Manel, sadly joined himself as a form of retribution for the Ferraris after killers had been very unlucky and ended up crashing out last race. Here we see the race winner Ferrari and the driver. We will now be shortly inviting drivers for the post-race interviews. But before that, we will now take a quick look at the grid by the end of the race. Well, as you can see, has received penalties which brought him all the way down to P4. Amazing performance from many of these drivers. Absolutely beautiful performance, an absolutely beautiful race, and one beautiful track. This league never disappoints. Clearly something amazing is going to be happening here towards the end of the season, with so many drivers fighting for race wins. The title fight can go in any direction. I'll now stop commentating for a while, and I'll invite the drivers for post-race interviews, so stay tuned for that. Hello, we'll just be waiting for everyone else to join real quick.
Um,
So nobody else is joining. So how would you describe your race if you could describe the entirety in one sentence, I guess?
good, but yeah, kinda messy.
And what do you
That's
think?
it.
What would you say about the tire strategies? Because of course the rain disrupted everything. Were you practicing with that as well? Because of course you had quite not the most dominant performance, but it was still enough to get you a podium position.
Yeah,
Do you describe the rain as disruptive, or do you think it was just another day in the office?
I mean, it's just you need to practice it, because it can always happen in the rain. So it's just your own fault if you didn't practice it.
Yeah, and did you expect to win the race? Well, not win the race, but come in B3 there at the end, because of course you were running at B4, I think you were. And then due to penalties, you ended up popping up into B3.
I was in P5, but I don't know. I thought, oh, it's just P5, it's okay. But then I saw penalties of some people, and then I got P3.
And will you tell us, because of course it has been something that a lot of viewers have been asking in the live chats about the contracts. Have you been offered a possible contract by Red Bull? Because of course it isn't the team that you were racing for at the beginning.
Yeah, the team boss wanted to keep me, and also he wanted to keep Kimmy, of course, because we were just one team. We were close together, So, and we're still close, so that's no problem. But it happens. I don't know what to say anymore, but
And just one more question: what were your expectations for this race? Do you think you could have done any better, or was this your peak performance?
I think it was just my best performance I could deliver. I didn't even expect it, because I qualified P10 and I ended up P3. In the beginning of the race I was just battling for like P12, and then the pit stops came. On the inters I was faster, but I got held up by traffic. So just was a hard race.
Yeah, I could imagine. I haven't really raced for more than 5 laps in outside of open lobbies and such rain, so it's always amazing to see you guys racing and making these overtakes around such surreal tracks. So that's it for you today. Thanks a lot. Thanks, you too. So by the looks of it, we don't have any other drivers joining our interviews now, so we're going to be ending the stream here. Thank you for joining us. We've seen 2 safety cars, amazing overtakes, DNFs, drivers giving up, drivers fighting till the very end. We've seen a lot of weather drama, and I have to say this is one of the best races you could possibly imagine to see in such competitive leagues. And there's definitely more to come. This is only round 6 of 10, so 4 more to come. I'll see you next week, next Saturday, around the same time. My name's Oliver. Thank you for joining me. Have a good one.